The studio lights were blinding, but the tension in the air cut sharper than any glare. From the opening second, it wasn't a polite exchange, it was war. Denzel leaned forward, his voice steady but loaded with fire. "Donald," he began, no hesitation in his tone, "you sold yourself as a businessman, but what you really did was scam America, just like you scammed the contractors, the builders, and even the banks. Billions stolen in the name of profit, and now you want to call it leadership?" Trump tried to laugh it off, waving his hand as if brushing away an insect. "Fake news," he muttered, but the chuckles didn't land. The audience shifted uncomfortably, sensing Denzel wasn't about to let him off easy. Denzel raised a folder in his hand, thick with documents. He slapped it against the table for effect, the sound echoing through the studio. "This isn't Hollywood fiction. These are real court filings, families bankrupt, workers unpaid, small businesses crushed under your so-called empire. You call yourself a billionaire? No. You're a billionaire scam artist. And the receipts are right here." Gasps rippled across the crowd. The moderator's eyes widened, struggling to regain control of the debate. But the energy had shifted, the first 30 seconds had already set the tone. Denzel wasn't just arguing, he was prosecuting. Trump, for once, seemed smaller in the chair, his signature bravado cracking under the weight of evidence. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was the calm before the storm. Trump leaned back in his chair, jaw tight, eyes scanning the crowd for backup. But the audience wasn't with him tonight. For the first time in years, his usual lines, witch hunt, fake news, jealous Hollywood elites, felt flat, powerless against the storm Denzel was unleashing. "You call it business," Denzel pressed, voice cutting through the studio like steel. "I call it theft. Do you want me to name them, Donald? The New Jersey hotel contractors you stiffed? The architects you never paid? The electricians left hanging while you threw parties in gold-plated ballrooms? Or should I start with the billion-dollar casino collapse you buried while working men and women lost their livelihoods?" Trump slammed his palm on the table, his face flushed. "That's a lie. Every deal I made was legal. Everyone wanted to work with me, they begged to work with me." His words spilled faster, louder, but the conviction wasn't there. The cracks in his armor showed. Denzel didn't flinch. He leaned closer, lowering his voice so every listener had to lean in too. "Legal doesn't mean moral. You bragged about gaming the system, and you're right, you gamed it. You gamed America. But here's the truth, you didn't build an empire. You built a fraud so massive, it collapsed under its own weight. And now you expect the American people to forget?" The audience erupted, half in gasps, half in applause. Even the cameras caught a woman in the front row shaking her head, mouthing, "That's true." Trump pointed a finger, desperate to regain control. "You don't know what it takes to be me. You don't know the deals I made." Denzel snapped back instantly, "We know exactly what it takes to be you, lies stacked on top of lies, until even you can't tell the difference anymore." The room boiled over. The debate was no longer just about politics, it had become a trial, and Trump was the defendant facing Denzel's relentless cross-examination. The tension in the studio was so thick it felt like the air itself might shatter. Trump leaned forward, gripping the edge of the desk, his trademark bravado slipping away. His voice cracked as he tried to retake the spotlight. "Billions, Denzel. I made billions. You're just an actor. You don't understand the art of the deal." Denzel chuckled, a low, steady laugh that carried more weight than shouting ever could. He raised an eyebrow. "The art of the deal? That's rich. Tell that to the workers in Atlantic City who cashed their last paycheck while your casino empire collapsed. Tell that to the small businesses you dragged into court for daring to demand payment. The only art you mastered was the art of the con." The audience broke into applause, some even rising to their feet. Trump's cheeks burned red, his jaw clenched tight as cameras zoomed in on the beads of sweat forming at his temple. "You've played the victim for decades," Denzel continued, his voice sharp, unwavering. "You claim the system is rigged, but the truth is you rigged it yourself. Billion-dollar scams dressed up as success stories. Bankruptcy after bankruptcy, and yet somehow you always walked away richer while ordinary people were left picking up the pieces. Trump slammed his fist down again. Fake news. All of it. Lies from Hollywood elites who hate America. Denzel didn't miss a beat. He leaned toward the camera, speaking directly to the viewers at home. This isn't Hollywood. This is America's reality. And if we let a man who bankrupts not only businesses but trust itself define what leadership means, then we've already lost more than money, we've lost our soul. The audience roared, the energy vibrating through every corner of the studio. Trump, for once, was on the ropes, and everyone watching knew it. Trump tried to laugh it off, flashing that forced grin that once worked on rally stages but now looked more like desperation. Denzel, you don't know a damn thing about running a business. I built an empire. I built the Trump name into the most powerful brand in the world. Denzel shook his head slowly, almost pitying. Empire? You call that an empire? Let's break it down. For bankrupt casinos in Atlantic City. Trump Airlines, gone. Trump University, shut down and forced to pay $25 million in fraud settlements. Trump Steaks, couldn't last a year. That's not an empire, Donald. That's a graveyard of scams. The crowd gasped and erupted in laughter, some even chanting, "Scam! Scam!" as the cameras cut between their faces and Trump's tightening jawline. His attempt to regain control slipped with every chant that echoed in the room. You sold failure as success, Denzel pressed on, his finger tapping the table with each point. You conned investors, you conned customers, and now you're trying to con the entire nation. But people are waking up, and they're tired of footing the bill for your lies. Trump snapped back, raising his voice over the noise. I gave jobs. I gave opportunity. People lined up to work for me because I'm the best. Denzel leaned in, his voice firm, cutting through Trump's bluster like a blade. Jobs that disappeared when you skipped out on the bills. Opportunities that ended in lawsuits. You left people broken, Donald. Broken lives, broken dreams. And now you want us to believe you can fix America when all you've ever done is break it? The audience was on fire, cheering, clapping, some even stomping their feet. Trump's face reddened further, his words collapsing under the weight of Denzel's relentless truth. For the first time in a long time, it wasn't Trump controlling the narrative. It was Denzel, and he wasn't backing down. Trump tried to fight back, pounding the table as if volume alone could restore his grip. I've built towers across the world. My name is etched in gold on skylines from New York to Dubai. People beg to work with me. That's not a scam, that's success. Denzel chuckled, shaking his head slowly, and the studio leaned in closer. Etched in gold, he repeated, his voice dripping with irony. Donald, half those towers? You didn't even own them. You licensed your name. You rented out your reputation, and now that reputation is bankrupt. Those buildings didn't carry your weight, they carried your illusion. The audience roared. Some clapped, others shouted, facts, while Trump's expression froze into a defensive scowl. The camera caught him adjusting his tie, the universal sign of discomfort. You don't build, Denzel continued, eyes locked on him. You exploit. You slap your name on projects funded by others, then walk away when the debts come due. You left contractors unpaid, hundreds of them. Small businesses crumbled because you refused to pay your bills. That's not leadership, Donald. That's predatory greed. Trump jabbed his finger toward Denzel, his voice strained. You're twisting history. I made deals no one else could make. I created wealth like nobody else. America needs a fighter, someone who wins. Denzel leaned back, calm but cutting. A fighter? No, you're a gambler who plays with other people's chips and then runs when the house collapses. And now you want the White House to be your casino. Well, America isn't your game table, Donald. And the people aren't here to be your next victims. The crowd's reaction was electric, half laughter, half outrage at Trump's deflection. Chants of "pay your bills" rang out, drowning Trump's attempts to regain composure. It was clear, Denzel wasn't just exposing a pattern, he was stripping Trump's entire brand down to the raw, uncomfortable truth. The moderator tried to regain control, but the energy in the room had shifted beyond repair. Trump leaned forward, face red, his words sharp and uneven. "This is a witch hunt. You're parroting lies fed by the fake news media. Everything I've done has been legal, everything I've touched has turned to gold." Denzel raised an eyebrow, letting the silence build before delivering his strike. "Gold? Or fool's gold?" he asked, his tone surgical. "Let's be real, Donald, how many bankruptcies are we at now? 6? 7? You don't turn things to gold, you bury them in debt and walk away while everyone else bleeds." The audience gasped, then erupted into applause. Trump clenched his jaw, but Denzel pressed harder. "You brag about being a billionaire, but the truth is, much of that wealth came from tax loopholes, shady write-offs, and lawsuits that dragged on until your opponents couldn't afford to fight anymore. That's not genius, that's bullying with a checkbook." Trump slammed his hand on the table. "You don't understand business. This country needs strength, not Hollywood lectures." Denzel didn't flinch. He leaned in, his voice lower but sharper. "Strength isn't stiffing workers, Donald. Strength isn't lying to investors. Strength isn't turning the presidency into a brand deal. Real strength is honesty, accountability, and protecting the people who believe in you. And on every count, you've failed." For a moment, the room was dead quiet, until chants of "tell the truth" filled the air. Cameras zoomed in on Trump's uneasy stare, his practiced confidence cracking. Denzel sat back, calm as ever, and delivered the final blow of the exchange. "You're not the dealmaker, Donald. You're the deal breaker. And America is tired of being your collateral damage." The explosion of applause drowned out Trump's protests, and the moderator could only hold his hands up, overwhelmed by the storm that had taken over the broadcast. Trump tried to laugh it off, but the sound was hollow, brittle, a man clutching for control. "Collateral damage? Please. I've built more jobs than anyone in this room. People love me. The economy thrived because of me, and you know it." Denzel leaned forward, unshaken. "Jobs?" he echoed, voice dripping with disbelief. "You mean the construction projects where contractors begged to be paid? Or the universities you launched that collapsed and left students in debt? Let's not twist history, Donald. Your trail is littered with people you promised to lift up, only to leave them crushed." The studio audience murmured, some shaking their heads, others clapping in bursts of agreement. Trump's face grew tighter, the mask of bravado slipping further. He pointed at Denzel with a trembling hand. "You're just another actor reading lines. You don't understand real pressure. You've never carried the weight of an empire on your shoulders." Denzel's eyes narrowed. "An empire built on lies doesn't weigh, it rots. And America isn't an empire for you to exploit. It's a trust, Donald. A trust you broke, again and again." The words hung heavy. Trump stammered, searching for his next counter, but the silence exposed him more than any attack could. Denzel used it. "You want to talk about pressure? Try telling a family that lost their home because of a collapsed business deal you abandoned. Try telling a veteran who got scammed by your promises that it was just business. That's pressure, Donald. And you folded every time." A loud cheer erupted, echoing like a wave. Trump's attempt to shout over it fell flat, his voice drowned by chants of "Denzel. Denzel." The moderator, visibly rattled, tried to restore order, but the audience had chosen their moment. Denzel sat back, calm and steady. "This isn't about politics. It's about character. And the country is finally seeing yours for what it is." The crowd roared, and Trump's glare burned across the stage, but the damage had already been done. Trump leaned forward, his voice cracking as he tried to regain control. "Character? Don't lecture me about character. I've faced tougher critics than you. The American people know I'm a fighter. They want strength, not Hollywood speeches." Denzel didn't blink. He let the words hang, then countered with precision. "Strength isn't measured by how loud you yell or how many lawsuits you dodge. It's measured by honesty, accountability, and the ability to put others before yourself. And Donald, you've failed on all 3 counts. Trump's lips tightened, his fists clenched on the desk. That's a lie, he shouted, but the force in his tone sounded more desperate than confident. Denzel leaned slightly forward, lowering his voice just enough to force everyone to lean in. Let's talk about Trump University. Thousands of students, promised opportunity, left with worthless papers and debt. Or how about contractors unpaid for work completed? That's not strength, that's betrayal. And betrayal always comes back. The audience gasped, whispers rippling like wildfire. Trump opened his mouth, but Denzel cut him off again, his timing sharp as a blade. You call yourself a fighter? You're not fighting for America, you're fighting to protect your own reflection. Everything is about you. Your empire. Your image. Your name in gold letters. But you forgot one thing, America is not for sale. A surge of applause thundered through the room. Even those who came to support Trump shifted uneasily, some exchanging glances, their faith shaken. Trump raised his hands, trying to calm the storm. Fake news. Lies. All lies, he bellowed, but his voice cracked on the last word. Cameras zoomed in, catching the sweat gathering on his brow. Denzel sat back slowly, his expression unreadable but commanding. The truth has a way of breaking through noise, Donald. And tonight, it's breaking through you. The audience exploded, half on their feet, while Trump's face twisted with fury. The moment was no longer his to control. The cameras locked in, every lens capturing Trump's face as it darkened with anger. He slammed his hand against the table, the sound echoing across the studio. You're twisting everything. You don't know what it takes to build an empire, Denzel. You're just an actor, stick to scripts and cameras. Leave the real world to me. The insult hung in the air, but Denzel didn't flinch. He let the silence linger, then spoke with deliberate calm. You see, that's the problem. You think this is about acting. But the truth is, Donald, you've been acting your whole life, playing a businessman, playing a leader, even playing a president. And the cost of your performance has been paid by ordinary Americans. The crowd erupted in gasps and cheers. Trump tried to wave them down, his jaw trembling as he muttered, "Nonsense, nonsense," but his words barely cut through the roar. Denzel leaned forward again, eyes locked on Trump. You brag about towers with your name in gold. But behind those towers are unpaid workers, lawsuits buried under paperwork, and lives you've broken for profit. You want me to stick to scripts? Here's a script you can't escape, the truth. And tonight, it's not written by you, it's written by the people you've used and discarded. Trump's eyes darted across the audience, searching for support, but the murmurs had shifted. Even some of his loyalists were quiet, their expressions uneasy. His shoulders slumped for just a moment before he straightened again, trying to summon his bravado. Fake. All fake, he barked, but the cracks in his armor were visible. His voice shook, his hands trembled, and for the first time, the mask of control was slipping. Denzel didn't need to raise his voice. He sat back, calm yet unyielding, and said, "History will remember this, Donald. Not as strength, not as leadership, but as a man exposed. And you did it to yourself." The room thundered with applause, and Trump's eyes flickered with something no spin could hide, fear. The studio felt like it had turned into a courtroom, with Denzel as both witness and prosecutor. The applause hadn't yet died down when Trump leaned into his microphone, desperate to claw back control. You think you're so righteous, Denzel? You're just trying to humiliate me on national television. But America knows me, they know I'm a winner. Denzel tilted his head, his expression almost pitying. Winners don't leave a trail of bankruptcies behind them. Winners don't stiff veterans who built their casinos. Winners don't hollow out trust in democracy just to feed their own ego. No, Donald. America doesn't see a winner. They see a man who sold the truth for applause and gold-plated lies. The crowd surged again, clapping and chanting, their voices rattling the cameras. Truth! 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 The chant grew so loud that Trump's next words were swallowed whole. His face turned crimson, sweat streaking his temple. He pounded the desk, but even that gesture looked weak, like a child throwing a tantrum when the game stopped going his way. Denzel let the chant build, then raised his hand. The audience gradually hushed, leaning forward to hear his closing words. This isn't just about Donald Trump. It's about every American who's ever been cheated, lied to, or silenced. Tonight, the mask came off. And the world saw the man behind it, not a leader, but a fraud who used power to protect himself instead of the people. The room fell into a stunned quiet, broken only when the moderator whispered, "That's all the time we have." The camera zoomed in one last time, Denzel sitting tall, steady, a portrait of defiance, while Trump slumped back in his chair, eyes glassy, lips moving with no words left to give. The credits rolled, but the moment had already burned itself into history. For millions watching, it wasn't just a debate. It was the night truth buried an empire built on lies. America saw the truth tonight. Trump's empire of lies has finally been stripped bare. This wasn't just a debate, it was a reckoning. And remember, silence is not an option. Speak, stand, and never let fraud disguise itself as leadership again.